Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the program objectives. So we will go over safety by the numbers. We will review current regulations. This will not be an in-depth review. It'll just kind of be like an overview. We will discuss tractor safety elements, overview of conducting pre-use inspections and the importance of a pre-use inspection, and then roadway safety tips. Safety by the numbers. So in 2016, 417 farmers and farm workers died from a work-related injury, resulting in a fatality rate of 21.4 deaths per every 100,000 workers. So that is quite a bit. And most of the time, this is due to lack of training of the operators and lack of, conducting the pre-use inspections. Most importantly, annual evaluations for employees. Transportation incidents, which include tractor overturns, were the leading cause of death for these farmers and farm workers. And every day, around 100,000 agricultural workers suffer a loss injury. So again, most of the time, this is going to be due to lack of training and lack of, evaluations. It's great that we train employees upon hiring them or assigning new jobs that require the use of equipment. But if we're not conducting annual evaluations, we don't know how they are doing. We are not monitoring the use of the equipment. The Environmental Protection Agency estimates that about 10,000 to 20,000 physician-diagnosed pesticide poisonings occur every year among the 2 million farm workers nationwide. Even after that, tractor overturns are the #1 cause of death. Okay, so understand the basic regulations. OSHA Standard 29, the Code of Federal Regulations 1928, goes over the tractor safety, what the employer shall, trainings that the employer shall conduct, pre-use inspections, annual evaluations. Today we will talk about a little bit about rollover protective structures, also known as RUPS, protective frames for wheel-type agriculture tractors, protective enclosures for wheel-type agriculture tractors, and then guarding of farm field equipment. And again, this is just an overview. For additional information and like a deeper dive into the reg, you can visit the link that's provided here for you. Again, this will be on the presentation once it is shared. RUPS shall be provided by the employer for each tractor operated by an employee. RUPS used on wheel-type tractors shall meet the test and performance requirements. Okay, protective frames for wheel-type agriculture tractors. So the section is to establish a test and performance requirements for a protective frame designed for wheel-type agricultural tractors to minimize the frequency and severity of operator injury resulting from accidental upsets. Okay, so the type of tests that must be performed are laboratory tests for energy absorption to analyze performance requirements of the standard, and then a field upset test to verify the effectiveness of the protective system under actual dynamic conditions. Protective enclosures for a wheel-type agricultural tractor. A protective enclosure is a structure comprising of a frame and/or enclosure mounted to the tractor. Again, laboratory and field absorption tests are required for protective enclosure structures. Guarding of farm field equipment. So the purpose is to provide protection for employees from hazards associated with moving machinery parts of farm field equipment, farmstead equipment, and contingents used in any agricultural operation, So again, for a deeper dive on requirements with training and ensuring operation of pieces or parts of a tractor, look into the reg, make sure you're covering it in your safety training program, and that when you are conducting training, you are going over these, very important elements. Specifications for accident prevention signs and tags. So equipment, this OSHA regulation defines the proper uses of slow-moving vehicle emblem. The slow-moving vehicle should be constructed of the proper material and displayed appropriately at the rear of the tractor and or the tractor implements combination. So these signs should be on the pieces of equipment. It is a requirement, and you will get dinged for not having these on the equipment. If they do start, falling off, or maybe there's discoloration, or, it starts to break off or tear off, then you have to definitely replace the emblem, I'm sorry. The purpose of the SMV is to alert vehicle operators approaching from the rear that the farm vehicle is unable to travel faster than 25 miles per hour. In regards to the tags now, an employer must provide lockout tagout procedures to prevent accidental application of electrical power to farmstead equipment. Employee education is a required part of the standard to provide instruction and safe operation and servicing of all equipment that an employee will operate, and general safety operational procedures. Responsibilities. So the operator is directly responsible for the safe operation of the tractor. The requirement, it is required to complete a pre-use inspection, and then the supervisor or manager is responsible for the pre-use inspection. So again, as an employer, upon hiring your tractor operators or equipment operators, and every year thereafter, or any time they are assigned a new job responsibility with a piece of equipment, it is your responsibility as the employer to make sure that that operator is properly trained, that they understand the use of the piece of equipment, and that they understand that they are required to complete a pre-use inspection. Pre-use inspections must be provided by the employer. There must be a space or a place where these are kept, how to document them, and who is responsible to ensure that this is happening. And those would be the supervisors or managers, or if you have a foreman, but they are the individuals responsible to ensure that the operator is meeting these requirements, that they are actually completing the pre-use inspection. A lot of times, we hear, well, that's just taking up our time, or it's, we're wasting time because we need to move on and get the job done. Well, 5 minutes of their time can really save their life or somebody else's life, conducting the pre-use inspection, making sure that everything is okay on the piece of equipment, oil, water, lights, the horn, brakes, all of these parts of the equipment must be inspected prior to use. Okay, so require that your tractor be equipped with a fire extinguisher, a horn, an overhead rollover protective structure or ROPS, a seat belt if it is equipped with ROPS, and an operator's manual. Remember, if the tractor comes with it, then it must be maintained or replaced when used. So for example, a fire extinguisher, okay, you're supposed to check fire extinguishers at your facility or at your, business location, etc. Make sure that the fire extinguisher on the piece of equipment is not missed. A lot of times when we go out and do audits, or we, do walkthroughs at operations, fire extinguishers on the tractors are almost always missed. So make sure that you are checking your fire extinguisher, and that a part of your pre-use inspection includes checking the extinguisher, checking the horns and the ROPS, and seatbelt to make sure that it's, you know, securing the operator properly, and that the operator's manual is also on the piece of equipment. If you don't keep your operator's manual on the piece of equipment, then store it somewhere where you can always refer back to it. Tractor versus automobile. Well, a tractor is 2 or 5 times heavier than an automobile. It was designed to pull heavy loads. You know, it carries loads, but it is designed for transportation. There's obviously a huge difference in size and weight. So whenever you do see a tractor on the roadway, respect its space around it. Make sure that, you know, you are at a safe distance from the equipment. If you are able to safely pass up the equipment, and you are allowed to, depending on the roadway, then again, do so cautiously and carefully, making sure that you have clearance and that you are providing clearance for the tractor itself. I remind myself of that every day whenever I am on the roadway, especially during heavy harvest seasons. It just gets very busy. And so it's important to respect their space and, again, share the roadway with them. Okay, tractor torque. So engaging the clutch of a tractor results in a twisting force called the torque to the rear axle. Under normal circumstances, the rear axle and tires should rotate and the tractor will move ahead. If this occurs, the rear axle is said to be rotating about the tractor chases. If the rear axle cannot rotate, then the tractor chases rotates about the axle. This reverse action results in the front end of the tractor lifting off the ground until the tractor's center of gravity passes the rear stability baseline. At this point, the tractor will continue to revert from its own weight until the tractor crashes onto the ground or other obstacle. So as the image here shows, the center of gravity of a tractor is found closer to the rear axle than it is to the front axle. The tractor may only have the rear to about 75 degrees from the level of surface before its center of gravity passes the rear stability baseline, and the tractor continues to flip over. This position is commonly called the point of no return. Once it passes the center of gravity, there's no coming back. There is no way it can come back forward. It is going to go all the way back. And this point can actually be a lot quicker than the operator can recognize the problem or can react. There's been many times where operators tell me when I do conduct operator safety training, you know, Rosie, by not putting on a seatbelt, it's easier to jump off of the tractor rather than going back with it. Well, that's true, but, you know, studies have shown, and incidents that have occurred have shown that wearing a seatbelt, remaining on the piece of equipment is a lot safer. That's why the ROPS are designed to be on tractors. And if you look at the image here, again, the ROPS here prevented the tractor from going completely all the way back. Okay. Okay, so torque and tractor rollover. Examples of this type of tractor are the rear tires are frozen to the ground. The tires are stuck in a mud hole. Tires could be blocked from rotating by the operator. And then the operator applies too much torque very quickly. Okay, so when this happens, if you apply torque too quickly, this can cause your equipment to you know, reposition itself and, you know, roll over. Okay, tractor data and capacity. So the capacity, or the weight of the tractor, and the load of the tractor is shown on the nameplate. The weight is specified in pounds. The weight, the nameplate on the tractor, on the piece of equipment, must be legible The operator must know where to find it. If it is missing, if it breaks off, if it is, not legible, then again, you can contact the manufacturer of the piece of equipment and have it replaced. It is required to be on the piece of equipment and should be required as part of the pre-use inspection. That would be one of the items that is checked. Again, the weight is specified in pounds, so the nameplate will provide you with information about the tractor, and then also provide you with the weight capacity of that tractor. And so again, you should respect the capacity, how much can that tractor pull and not go over. Overloading and loading incorrectly. So a tractor is more likely to tip when the load exceeds the rated load capacity and when the load is improperly located. So again, if you look at that image and take a look at the load that has been, that the tractor is trying to pull, the tractor is not going to be able to pull that load. So what happens is, again, the back tires freeze to the ground while the front tires begin to lift, which would then cause the tractor to overturn. Be aware of your surroundings. So it is important to check your surroundings before moving. Whenever you are going to do a certain job at a certain location, especially if it is a location that you are not familiar with, it is very important to do a quick analysis of where the work will be taking place. And it is very important to let operators know that it is important that they do that as well. They need to check for traffic, make sure that if there is traffic, do they have enough clearance to get through to and from? Other tractors and heavy machinery. Look out for pedestrians if they are going on roadways. Are there any pedestrians and workers nearby, or again, any other moving vehicles, and any other obstructions, such as electrical poles or overhead electrical lines, anything that might cause a hazard to the piece of equipment while operating it. Going back to conducting a site inspection, analyze the area to determine the best and safest operating procedures. Look for ditches, potholes, drop-offs, steep slopes, stumps, any standing water, anything, again, that could cause, an accident or incident with the equipment. Remove any debris or foreign object from which might be picked up and thrown by the piece of equipment. If you are using an implement with fold-up wings or other elevated parts, check for clearance as well. Do not allow the tractor or attachments to approach or contact any energized power line. The rule is that there should be a minimum distance of at least 10 feet. Again, checking for clearance. Any condition, finally, that might be hazardous, okay? So roadways, people, anything in the area. And if you do see anything, it is important that if operators do see anything that is hazardous or that might be hazardous once operating the equipment, they must notify their supervisor immediately, because they wouldn't be able to complete the job. Function and pre-use inspections. So again, always conduct your inspections before operation, okay? You should have a an inspection checklist readily available for operators, okay? It is important to conduct the pre-use inspection, and that is one of the most important parts of keeping your tractor and equipment safe, okay? The only way they will be able to receive any type of maintenance is if the mechanic or the responsible individuals know that the equipment needs maintenance, okay? When you do conduct a pre-use inspection, do a walkthrough completely around the entire piece of equipment. and make sure that you are checking every part, every aspect of the equipment. Make sure no one is under it, on it, or close to it. Let other workers know or other bystanders know that you are starting up the equipment. Make sure you start it until everyone is clear of the tractor. This includes implements and towed equipment. In addition to filling out the pre-use inspection list that you may have, you want to make sure that the operator that is doing the inspection adjusts the seat according to their comfort level. Fasten the seat belt or the restraint if it's provided. Make sure that these work and that they actually do, that it clicks once it's being locked, that it'll pull far enough to safely secure the operator. Check your parking brake. All controls are in neutral or in park position. Check all instruments, gauges, and indicator lights. Again, these must all be functioning properly. Horns or alarms, make sure that these work. And then the dual brake pads as well. This is an example of a pre-use inspection checklist that we put together here at ActSafe. Again, this will be provided along with the presentation. So if you need to use it as an example to create your own, by all means. Depending on your piece of equipment, you might want to identify the type of equipment or which equipment. If you have a fleet equipment, then make sure there is some sort of identification to each piece so that we know what checklist is for which tractor. I get asked a lot of the times, Rosie, if, tractor operator number 1 checked it at the start of his shift in the morning, why do I have to check it again when I use the tractor 2 or 3 hours later? Well, you must make sure that after operator 1 used the tractor, it is still in a good working condition or in good working condition for the second operator to, to use it. Jamie's asking if we happen to have the inspection sheet in Spanish. I'm not sure if we do, Jamie. I would like to say yes, but I'm not exactly sure. We can double check on that or reach out to us directly. Send us a quick email and we'll check on that for you. Good question. Thank you. Okay. So again, going back to our SMV signage. A major reason for farm machinery accidents on public roads is the difference in speed between cars and tractors. Motorists approach the slow-moving farm equipment so quickly that they only have a few seconds to identify the hazard and react appropriately. So this is why it's important for farm equipment to be highly visible, properly identified as moving much slower than any other regular traffic. The identification is provided by the slow-moving vehicle sign. It must be, again, centered in the rear of the tractor and or trailing equipment. It should be visibly clear from a distance of at least 150 meters. These signs, again, must be kept clean. If they are fading or damaged or maybe tearing off, I've done inspections on equipment where the sign is actually peeling off or just torn off or cracked or broken, depending on how they are. These have to be replaced. This is a requirement, federal requirement, to have these on any type of slow-moving vehicle. Okay, a quick overview of the do's and don'ts. So you want to make sure that the equipment is properly secured with the locking hitch pin and safety chain. Number 2, always lock brake pedals together for road travel. Slow down on curves, turns, and when pulling heavy loads. And obey all traffic laws and signs. Additional information is provided via the link presented here on this slide. That's okay, Nicole. Yes, we did mention this. It should be available as a PDF to download on our website. Thank you for asking. Okay. So again, we've covered some of the do's. let's go ahead and cover some of the don'ts, okay? So do not operate farm machinery on the road without an SMV sign. Don't ever let a tractor freewheel while traveling down a hill. Do not pull onto the road in front of moving traffic. And lastly, do not allow yourself to get angry at discourteous drivers. Again, take your time, make sure operators understand that every time we get in our vehicles, right, we're putting ourselves at risk. We're on the roadway. We're hoping that we get to and from home safely, but we just don't ever know. Well, with equipment, it is the same thing. Make sure that operators understand that their safety comes first, and whatever that means or whatever that looks like is important. They have to make sure that they are safe at all times and that they are taking their time getting to, from point A to point B, especially while on a public roadway when there are many other vehicles around them and maybe other pieces of equipment as well. Okay, I'd like to thank you all for participating today. We had a pretty good group show up. I was thinking, I don't know, it's Monday. So thank you all for your participation. Our contact information is provided here. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them in. Oh, Gerardo has a question. Gerardo, that's a good question. So you're asking if we have to display the slow-moving vehicle sign when you are transporting the tractor on a utility or vehicle trailer? Not necessarily, because the trailer, if you're pulling the tractor on the tractor itself is not on the roadway. It is on top of a trailer that's moving it. The sign should be on the tractor as you're transporting it. So that would be an indication of that it's a slow moving vehicle, but the actual vehicle that is transporting the trailer would not be required to have that sign, if that makes sense. Any other questions before I disconnect? You're welcome, Gerardo. Operators evaluated on an annual basis. Okay, there should be an evaluation done annually. Forklift evaluations should be done annually as well. Well, take that back, that's here in the state of California. For tractors, they should be evaluated annually. And honestly, that's best practices, guys. You want to make sure that you are, if you don't have any incidents or any near misses with an operator, that's great. But you still want to ensure that they are properly operating the piece of equipment, because we all know that with time we develop habits. They are not always the best habits. We become comfortable with using the equipment. And so what happens, we begin to forget or dismiss some of the rules and safety, rules, I guess, of when we first learned how to operate the equipment. So it is not a bad idea to do these evaluations annually. Again, even if you don't have any incidents, even if you have not had any near misses, doing an evaluation will also help you identify, the operators that you be able to leverage their skills and help them do training with other operators, or maybe monitor other operators. Okay. Any other questions? You're welcome. If you do have any questions, please send them to us via email, give us a call. Thanks so much for being with us today. Wish you all a very good day and a great rest of the week.